And I'm sitting on the edge of my bed, holding my head, trying to make this cake like a baker and get some bread. My mama said, hustling does come with fed. Time you the crime, you better head be prepared for what comes with it, the killing and cold convictions. Snorting bitches and snitches, often they get acquitted, while the real sent to prison to rot away while they living.
So, straight out of the ATL here into Calgary. Let's give it up one more time. Big round of applause for Kevin.
Now, you've had quite a bit of a career. For those who don't necessarily know, and are probably just here for the first time, I want to check it out. Tell us a bit about, I guess, how you got your start out in the ATL on the MIC.
There's this real famous group called OutKast, and I went to college with one of their younger brothers. And I, like every kid in Atlanta, grew up looking up to OutKast. And Lil James is Big Boy's little brother, and he introduced his brother to my music. And his brother liked what I was slinging in the streets independently. It was a group called Slum Lords at the time. It was me and some of my partners from my neighborhood. My partners got locked up because they were a robbing crew, and they were facing a long time in jail. And they ended up beating the case, but while they were doing that, Big Boy heard the tape and decided he liked me and gave me an opportunity to change my life.
Fantastic, and change it did. You were actually, I mean, you have been doing some stuff before, but of course, I think the first time the mainstream heard about you was The Whole World.
Yeah.
So that's a Grammy award-winning song, so big round of applause on that one, too.
Yeah.
Now, I know anytime there's a feature, this is me just thinking now, there's a feature and you're on there, and of course the credit goes to OutKast, but do you have a Grammy?
Yeah, of course.
Perfect.
Yeah, we
perfect.
We won a Grammy for best duo or collab. So
they gave you one, and it's
no, they didn't give me shit. I had the best. I had the best verse on that fucking record.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's what they told me. They was like, young boy, you came in and killed this shit. So I hold the fact that I have a Grammy for collab, me being the collaborator. I hold that very near and dear to me because I didn't want any sidekick awards, and I didn't come in the game asking to be anybody's protege. I was, and luckily so. But I didn't come in begging for you to like OutKast or like me too or any of that. I got on there and I repped like a motherfucker, and the people that liked The Whole World was cool, but more people that are diehard OutKast fans know me from a song called Snappin and Trappin.
There you go.
In which my first record ever, I told them I'm a motherfucking classic. So I've been an arrogant little fat bastard for a long time.
So they did not give you a Grammy?
I have a Grammy.
That's what I said.
That's what I say I do. I said, yes, of course I do. It's at home.
You have to forgive me.
It's right next to my Dave White painting and my weed.
That's what I'm saying. You have to forgive me. I'm a third world immigrant, so sometimes my English ain't that great.
I'm from Atlanta. It's about the same.
So we talk about Snappin and Trappin, and then of course the mainstream recognition. You moved on then to do Run the Jewels collaboration with LP.
Well, it was a lot in between that. It was a whole series of albums called I Pledge Allegiance to the Grind. Those who follow me on IG saw me put up two that my dad had found just up randomly. I stress that importance because this is what I want kids who want to be rappers or DJs or whatever else to know. You're going to put in a shitload more work that nobody's going to acknowledge you for, or a very small amount of people are going to acknowledge you for, but that's your cornerstone. You know, when people look at a skyscraper, they look up and they look at the top. It's amazing. But the cornerstone was set at the bottom. So I never let anyone forget that before I got to Run the Jewels, before I got to rap music, there's a whole series of albums called I Pledge Allegiance to the Grind, in which I left the OutKast company and I used my own money and I got out there on the road and I did it myself. That's what brought me to be able to do Run the Jewels, because a guy at Adult Swim named Jason DeMarco, who's a big fan of Dilla, RIP to Dilla, and he's a big fan of just dope music, and he liked that series. And when I went over and started doing business with my friend T.I. at Grand Hustle, Jay came over there and he was doing something else with them. And a little later, he was like, yo, man, I would like to do a whole album with you. And that's what brought me to rap music and Run the Jewels, was this little thing called I Pledge Allegiance to the Grind.
Nice. So with all the time in the game and all the different stuff that you have been doing that we're going to talk about, tell me about how you've seen the, for lack of a better term, the rise of the South. Like, I mean, you turn everywhere now and you're going to hear a lot of stuff happening from the South. But you guys, initially, I mean, there was a point where hip-hop was like, we ain't even really on that tip.
We didn't care.
I know.
This is what you got to understand. I need a paper towel or a towel, too. The South is a region, and hip-hop has been very city-oriented. hip hop was New York as a city, but really it was the Northeast as a region. But because it was always presented as New York the city, what will make you strongest will also in battle make you the weakest. A lot of times, you have a large army, you got to feed a large army. If you can't feed them, they're gonna starve, they're gonna desert you, and you're gonna lose to guerrilla forces. What the South always had to its advantage, that we were just lumped up together. Like coals, we were just lumped. Like you had New York, you had LA, and then you had the South. So because we were just called the South, not only did I grow up listening to Atlanta records, I grew up listening to Memphis, Miami, Chattanooga, Texas, and all these sounds kind of converged at a certain point, because even though it's different tweaks and twangs and slangs in the South, you know, everybody's grandma cooks collard greens and cornbread. So 8 Ball and MJG were as familiar to me as UGK, who were down in Houston, as Luke Skywalker. So I felt, we've always felt in the South that we had an advantage. And our advantage was we always were a region and we always supported one another. I am not surprised the South took over the world, because you just can't fight numbers. You know, you can't fight numbers. You know what I mean? You can't fight the fact that you have 8 states that like a record, and black radio for the most part in the states is located in the Southeast. So you can't fight it. So our thinking was eventually you guys would catch on, you know, and they did.
So I'm going to keep jumping back to the Run the Jewels. First of all, how'd the name come up? I can only think of one thing.
Cool J. The
Oh,
Cool
yeah?
J skit.
Dope.
The Cool J skit, yeah, from Cheesy Rap Blues.
Ill.
Yeah, I remember when L hit me with it, I was like, yes. It's like, yes. And then Nick Gazin sent over the logo, which everyone, you know, when he sent that over, it was just, this is it. I felt like whoever drew the Wu-Tang logo, that's how I felt at that moment. Like, shit, we just struck gold.
You could have the world throwing that up. That's ill. So good on that. Now, how did that collabo really come together? And I mean, well, first of all,
It's a rap group.
It's a different sound from what I think I would have known. Like, I've been down with hip hop for a minute, I would say. I think the guys in the back know that. So your collabo on that level now, it's a bit, I would say, darker as the Dirty Needles crew would, you know, say as well too. It's more that East Coast flavor.
Yeah.
Did you have a different write-in style? Like, what was your mindset when you were putting pen to paper on that stuff?
Luckily, man, I grew up not to have those limitations. You know, I listened to just as much East Coast and West Coast music as I did Southern music. The people that I tend to look up to as people I try to emulate myself after were also the same. I emulate Scarface, I emulate Bun B. You know, I emulate Ball and G. So these people all worked with East Coast artists. I emulate Ice Cube. These people work. So for me, I've never been afraid of an East Coast beat or an East Coast rhyme pattern. So for me, it was just a matter of just figuring out dopeness on that, because Run the Jewels sounds very different from Cancer for Cure and rap music. It really is a hybrid of what LP and I do. And that's the most beautiful thing about this group. For me, it's beautiful the same way Gangstar is beautiful, except you have 2 rappers instead of just a DJ and an MC. Because, you know, Premier, of course, lives and is known out of New York, but he's a Southerner. So his samples brought a certain soul to this guy from Boston, you know, that just no one has ever replicated. So my goal for when Elle and I start recording was to be, first and foremost, a real rap group, just like EPMD, just like 8 Ball and MJG, just like UGK, you know what I mean, to be an actual real rap group. So that means putting your ego and your notions of what I am as a solo artist aside and recreating who I am in the context of this group. And in the context of this group, you know, what we do is rapid fire, dark, humorous, crazy. I view Run the Jewels as a graphic novel. You know, we all have read dope comics as kids or dope movies that are dark and kind of funny, and people are like, why are you into that? That's what Run the Jewels is. You know, it's our opportunity to not be as serious and heavy as we are on our solo records. At the same time, be very dexterous in terms of rhymes, to be very adventurous in terms of patterns, and to explore subject matter that has shit to do with shit and is usually just fucking funny. And, you know, I just want you to enjoy this record and have a great time and walk away from the experience feeling more like I read a graphic novel or I went to see a wild movie, rather than think, well, what do they really mean by that? We'll get back to that when we get to the solo stuff.
I commend you on that too, because I mean, many times from the outside looking in, even, well, I'd say North America in general, but definitely in Canada, someone's going to be looking at hip hop as a genre and be like, it's all dark and it's all this negativity. But there's quite a bit of humor in what you guys were doing there.
Yeah, I shot a poodle within the first record on that. I hate fucking poodles. I think it's time someone to say that.
It's on tape now.
Yeah. Me and my wife go in an antique store. There's a poodle laying on a rug that she likes. I walk up and the poodle looks at me like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, you're a fucking poodle.
So would you say it was a big step out for you to actually say, you know what, this is just what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to be dark and humorous about it?
No, I don't think it was a big step. I think it's about just trusting the process. You know, just trust the new thing, you know. There are elements of Mike in it. There are elements of LP in it. But you have to trust yourself to push yourself to do something different. You know, I trusted that Elle and I were going to do something different. Now, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was going to sound like. I just know when we finished, I liked it. And that's really to me the ultimate measuring. Do I like it? Because I'm a fan of hip hop. You know, I love hip hop. I love hip hop the same way or more if you guys love it. I love it just the way I did when I was 12 years old and my grandmother was telling me to turn it down. So I just want to please that 12-year-old boy. I want him, the kid who was listening to NWA and Ghetto Boys and Public Enemy, I want him to be like, yeah. So when I do my music, I tend to try to do it for that in me. Like, will this impress Mike at 12, or will he be like, man, he a sucker? I just don't want to be a sucker.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit more about that. So we're all students of hip hop for the most part, love hip hop. But there's always, every generation passes, a criticism coming with regards to new and old artists, etc. Who you listening to now? Who you feeling?
Man, I'm listening to Scotty ATL. I'm listening to Scotty. I'm listening to Rah. Scotty ATL is him on social media, and One Up Rah is Rah. I'm listening to both of those guys. I actually have records with both of those guys, but I was listening to them before I had records with them. You should listen to Trouble Young Man from Rah, and you should listen to this record I got with Scotty. It's called Pray Alone. It features Trouble on the hook. I'm also listening to 2 Chainz, Freebase, and Young Thug, because I like that shit. I'm listening to Death Certificate. My wife and I usually get up, smoke a joint, and listen to Al Green and Scarface. And I always listen to Sade, and I always listen to Anita. So, yeah. So.
Well-rounded.
Yeah.
I love the fact you wake up first thing in the morning and smoke a joint with your wife while you're listening to Al Green, though.
Yeah, hell yeah. The Reverend.
Yes, the Reverend, exactly. I think I'm going to incorporate that into my lifestyle.
Yeah, we're going to go. We got a month off in July. We're going to drive up to Memphis and smoke weed and eat barbecue and go to this church.
That sounds like a road trip. Is there anything you're not feeling? If we were to say the criticism, not to talk negatively about, about what's going on. But
is it what I'm not feeling? Yeah. I'm not feeling whoever's programming radio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've not been feeling who's been programming radio for years.
That's not necessarily true all the time. I mean, I just I could deal with it when
Mike, you haven't been living here.
Oh yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I could deal with radio when it was the same 35 songs on radio, but now it's down to the same 12 records, and that's a little boring. And not even I don't like the artists. I just think there are other records by the artists you could play. But I don't control radio. But art is objective. I can't really tell an artist I don't like what you're doing. Like when people are like, oh man, you like Future, you like Young Thug. I'm like, yeah, I like a lot of reggae artists too, and I didn't understand what they were saying. I just knew I loved those records, and I see like that genre gets a lot of kick around, unfortunately for me. But that record for me is like the stuff they're doing is the patois of Atlanta. It is. And that's how I view it. I view it as more of a world music than just this little Atlanta niche hip hop thing. So, there's not much stuff that I'm not willing to give a shot out there. There's some stuff that I don't get, that it just doesn't stick with me, but I give everything a shot. And the stuff I like, I keep listening to a lot. And the stuff I don't, if you're around listening to it, I'll listen to it with you. I ain't tripping, I'm grooving. But I think I got introduced to Rat Kings like 4 weeks ago. And since then, I've been listening to them because Rat Kings makes me feel like I felt when I first heard Boot Camp Click when they first got grimy. Like right after Buckshot, right when they just went all the way dark, it gives me that feeling, and I miss that feeling. And I think that rap has gotten to a point now where styles have almost become nostalgic. So you'll see styles start to reproduce themselves. So you see ASAP them have heavily been influenced by, say, Houston, and that style comes out in a different way, but you still see where the style influence come from. Space Ghost Perp in his Memphis, that old Prophet Pop posse shit that 3-6 Mafia used to do, kids be all geeked up in school, wilding out like Space Coast Perps, makes me feel like that. So I'm into seeing those styles live, and I'm glad to see that my genre has grown to a point. My real only criticism of hip hop is old people spend too much time criticizing. And by old, I mean people 32 and up. You spend too much time criticizing and not enough time supporting, which means to me, you should be brokering for promoters to bring those acts that you've loved from the golden era in. Like, my dad is 58 years old. My dad still listens to rock and roll. My dad will still mess around with him and his girlfriend to go to a show. They'll still support the acts that they love. So my question for hip hop becomes like, why do you stop supporting acts? Like, you know, I was listening to a radio the other day, listening to Al Sharpton. I'm ashamed to admit that, but I was listening to it, and he was like having people come in and talk about the music they like. And this dude was like, yeah, I used to be heavily into hip hop and used to be into Chuck D and Ice-T, and then I got into jazz. And I was thinking to myself, I love jazz too, but you know they don't talk. So how are you expressing the thought? You know, you get what I'm saying? Like, I understand the music, but if you grew up on hip hop, part of what was so cerebral about hip hop is that I'm hearing people speak ideas that I have. I'm hearing someone speak to ideas I may or may not agree with, but it's still a spoken thing. It's kids who can do this and create a sound. So, like, at what point did children speaking become unimportant to me? Because I love children speaking. I love to hear what's going on. And I just thought that was a really crappy answer, because Chuck D's still out there making music, doing concerts. Ice-T is still, Ice-T and Body Count did a festival we did. So for me, I still go see those acts I love. I still support those acts I love, and I support young acts. And I would encourage hip hop to do that, because if you don't take care of your culture and however it made you feel in junior high school, you're going to lose that forever. And we're going to find some hip hop Kenny G, and your ass is going to be listening to Kenny G jazz / hip hop. And that's no diss to Kenny G. I just remember how my uncle reacted. Kenny G was all the way cool until they called him a jazz artist. My uncle spazzed. I was like, what's wrong, bruh? And he was like, Coltrane is jazz, Monk is jazz. And that's how I got introduced to Coltrane and Monk, because I thought it was just Kenny G, you know? So I just encourage you guys to share your love of your music with your children, with younger people than you. My oldest son, who just graduated high school, rode around with me in a 95 Impala listening to Ice Cube, listening to Gang Starr, listening to AZ. You know, he asked me for a birthday gift. I was like, well, what do you want for your birthday? He said, I just want AZ's album, Do or Die. Oh. You know? And that meant the world to me.
I would love if a 19-year-old even came up to me and said they even knew who AZ was.
Well, that only happens when you engage them, though.
Well, fair enough. Maybe I need to hang around more 19-year-olds.
Maybe you need to buy some CDs and just give them out as gifts.
Could it be a female? Yeah. All right, that's going to get me in trouble. No, that's very insightful. Thank you for that. So talk to me then, if we're going to talk about trying to go fast forward a little bit. Okay. You've been in the game for a while. You're still active. You, like you said, are attempting to push the boundaries in different directions for yourself. Where do you think hip-hop in general is going as a genre?
Where do I think it's going? I don't know where hip-hop is going. I know where I'm going.
Talk about that. Where you going? Where you going?
I'm going to make more records as Run the Jewels and this Killer Mike, and I'm going to keep trying to grow this audience that you guys have been, just so gracious to become a part of. And I'd like to appreciate everybody in here that's been a Killer Mike supporter, that is or that is open to being. I'd like to thank you all, because it was a lot of days I was just like, man, just fuck it. I'm going to do something else. But with the advent of social media, first MySpace and Facebook and Twitter, I lost the filter of what a record company thought, and I got straight to the point of what the audience wanted, and that enhanced me. So as long as the audience says we want more music, I'm going to be giving more music. I joke with L, like, L always thinks that, maybe we're going to have an end date. And I'm like, Willie Nelson still smokes weed and tours. I grew up listening to Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings, so I'm going to be smoking weed and touring,
Good for you.
So I celebrate artists that are able to figure it out. I remember talking to Dre 3000 after that first Coachella show that didn't go so well. And I was like, yo, bro, like, I don't care what you have to do. You got to figure out a way to put a wig and a costume on, because I've told my children about this legend, and that's what we want to see. And I think that we have to understand that when you set a bar this high, you can't just walk away from the bar, because if other people can't reach it, then they're going to start lowering the bar and acting like it's still that high. So you have to stay there to make. If you never make another record, you got a tour to show how high the bar can be, so people will aspire toward that. OutKast is the biggest rap group I've ever seen in my life, and I grew up watching Run DMC. But Run DMC reached a point where they stopped. for whatever reason, whether it was Find God, sound different. But Run and them ain't that old. Run won't be 50 till this year. You think in the context of that. So I just feel like as long as you can do it, and when you can't, you'll know it's time. And that's when you should leave.
Okay. Now, Beat Drop as a space, we're a DJ and production school. We always like to foster, new ideas, creative people here in the city. What would you give to advice-wise to, say, an aspiring producer, act, anyone who potentially would even just come through in this space? We might have some in the room today.
Do what you do for your passion. Don't ever stop your passion. Figure out a way to make some money. So your passion is not something that you grow to resent. There was a point where I started resenting rap because of what I hadn't achieved or hadn't gotten. And I had to basically get off the bullshit. Because what happens is, if you depend on your passion to feed you and it doesn't, you start to hate that passion, or you start to do things that are unpassionate, and that's not right. You should figure out a way to support yourself. I was asked when I got off the plane, my wife and I, a few days ago, by a young man, like, Mike, I want to be a rapper. What should I do? I said, well, the first thing you should do is pick the 3 sneakers you like and buy them, right? He said, yeah. And I said, then put 3 pair of Levi's and buy them. He said, yeah. I said, then just buy a pack of white T-shirts and whatever polos. I said, so that gives you about 6 outfits, right? He said, yeah. And I said, then don't buy anything else for the year. I say, that's your rap outfit. That's your go out on a day. I say, otherwise, just wear some Dickies and Converse. Because what you're going to need to do is invest in yourself. What you're going to need to do is use your money to figure out how to make money. And I said, the next thing you need to do is figuring out how to buy your own computer, buy your own camera, buy your own microphone, so you can record your shit, and then you can video your shit, and you can put your shit out. You know what I mean? Because if you are not fueling your passion with some dollars, your passion is going to die. If you're dependent on your passion to totally feed you and it hasn't ignited into a brush fire yet, you're going to get angry. So what you should figure out how to do first is stabilize your life. What are you good at that may not be your passion you can get paid for? You need to do that. What small business can you have? I don't care if you're selling ices on the street. Do that, because that will allow you to really do what you want to be doing. And when you get the opportunity to do it, and realize that you're doing an art. So you might die broke. And be comfortable with that. I'd be rapping if I wasn't rapping. I own a barbershop too. I sit in that barbershop when I'm not rapping, talk shit, and freestyle to myself. That's what I would have been doing had I worked at the post office. That's what I would have been doing had I called a 5 to 10 for selling cocaine. I would have been doing this. Nothing would have stopped me from rapping. So for me, don't give your passion up at the lust of having something for it. Keep your passion, but figure out a way to make some money so that your passion can stay as pure as you'd like it to. Because over the years, I've made some records that I didn't necessarily want to make for the money. Like, people like the Scooby-Doo record. I mean, I figured out a cool way to talk about weed on a Scooby-Doo record, but I totally did that record for $15,000. They were like, you want to do a Scooby-Doo record with us, Mike? I was like, He's like, pay $15,000. But it was Scooby-Doo with Shaq. And I have no problems admitting that, because the verse came out dope and it bought me new furniture that my kid's mom kept when she left me.
So it sounds like you do have a plan outside of your rap, which is fantastic. You talked about your barbershop. I'd read somewhere you were actually trying to do more than one barbershop.
Yeah, we're going to be opening another one in the winter. This is the shop. It's called the Swag Shop. Shave, wash, and groom. All you wonderfully bearded brothers or brothers that need to grow beards to get tape-ups or fade, come. Women who want their eyebrows arched, come. When you get in Atlanta, we're 8 minutes from the airport. If you want to go on IG and follow it, Graffiti Swag Shop, and it's 3461 Roosevelt Highway, 30349. It is a wonderful barbershop. It is a barbershop that looks like art. Chris Hobey is an artist from Artistic Revolts. He actually painted the shop. I have some of his paintings in my personal collection I brought and put in the shop. We have what do we have? We have Chris. We have KG, which is a young lady out of Houston who's a phenomenal young artist growing up. We have a few artists, some I'm forgetting the name. We have Geronimo P. out of Augusta. We have a lot of art, literal art on the walls. We give away Hot Wheels with every kid's haircut. So if you have a kid, you get a haircut, they get a Hot Wheel. You know what I mean? It's a car-based thing. People pull their hot rods up in front, take pictures. I just wanted a place where it was still cool to be a guy And I wanted a place where it was safe to be a young man. I didn't want drugs. I didn't want gambling. I didn't want that stuff over my kids or over any kids in barbershops. So we have a real family-oriented environment without trying to be Bennigans. You know, it's hip hop videos and music play in the evening, jazz and soul play in the morning. Hot Wheels are flying everywhere. Mothers get doors open for them. You know, you get a free beer on the weekends if you're a dad and you're not driving. You know what I mean? So it's a pretty cool place, and we're looking to open 150.
I'm bald-headed, and I'm looking to come to your barbershop.
You should be there. Let me tell you something about my bald-headed brothers out there, man. A lot of bald brothers, man, like, man, I'll just do it at the crib myself. Like my DJ. I don't know why he won't come to the shop, man. You come to the shop, right? You come to the shop with a little stubble, and this wonderful girl, she's pretty too. She sits you down, she washes your head, she washes your face, she shampoos you. You get a 3-towel, hot towel shave on your head. Come on, man, I heard somebody make a sex noise. How could you not want that? And what I really love about the shop is because of the wonderful staff that I have and because of the service that we provide, I'm able to create this relationship amongst very young customers who come for the Hot Wheels, their mothers who get an opportunity to be honored and not harassed, and these older gentlemen that come for the service. There's this 3-way conversation that happens in the shops that let the kids are better for it afterwards. The older gentlemen are better for it, and the moms are happy to be in place where their young men are learning to be respectful. Some moms just come up and drop their boys off. He'll be sweeping today. He's your new intern. You know, and so I am very encouraged by the amount of community service that we've been able to do out of the shop also, and I look forward to taking it to more neighborhoods in Atlanta and throughout North America.
See, now I'm thoroughly intrigued on the barbershop thing. But let's talk about the music. You're here, you're in Calgary. Thank you for being here, part of the whole Sled Island on the Real. What are we gonna see? Someone who's never seen the Killer Mike, what are we getting today?
You going to church? Yeah, you're gonna hear some ghetto gospel. I'm a believer in God. I'm not a believer in religion. You know, I've probably been a part of all of them, and I was like, dude, all of them just take you to a guy who wears a dress. So I could just like Young Thug more if I want to see that. I'm going to be as passionate and real as I am, rhyming words over dope beats as I hopefully am right now, as transparent as now. And I try my best to give you all I got on a show and more, and I hope you guys appreciate it, because I'll be honest with you, I'm probably not going to end up in nobody's church, mosque, or synagogue no time soon. So the closest I have to any religious experience is performing to and for you guys. So thank you guys for the opportunity to come and perform, as this is pretty much it for me and my soul.
Artist-wise, you talked about a huge depth, obviously, of music that you listen to. Is there anybody that, if you had the opportunity to work with, who would that be?
Oh man, if I had the opportunity to work, I mean, I've worked with a
lot
of my heroes.
A lot of people.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of my heroes.
Give me somebody you haven't worked with.
I haven't done a whole album with Scarface yet.
Yeah. And
that's what I want to do. I haven't done a song with Sade because of what she means to me, and I'd love to do that. And I'd love to do a record with Al Green.
Crazy.
You know, it's that way you don't have to pay the sampling cost. You could just have him sing it. Chop that shit up. Put that shit back out, bruh.
Business all the time. We're going to turn the mic over to, I guess, the floor. I'm sure some people here, some fans are in the room, probably have a couple questions for you if you're cool with that.
Okay, I'm sorry for sweating too. I was running a little bit to be on time. So I don't want to have that rapper bag.
I'm just going to get my Montel.